Wedding Rear.
Numbing hand.
Wedding Rear.
Essence of slug. Numbing hand.
Wedding Rear.
Essence of slug. Numbing hand.
Wedding Rear.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, the podcast trapped in its own time loop right along with the movies we discuss. This season is the serial bomb, yo, and we're looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, starting with Buffy Season 6, Episode 5, Life Serial. Today we're discussing the second act in the episode, starting at 9 minutes and 58 seconds, with Xander and Buffy walking onto the construction site, and ends at 17 minutes and 35 seconds, with Xander firing Buffy. Today my guest is Niall McGowan from Batminute. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm very excited. Nate is a seasoned podcaster, and yet somehow this is the first time I've been asked to talk about Buffy in any form, it's such a heavily podcasted show. I thought I've been brought up at some point in my career, but no, not until today.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was doing like a bit of research for this podcast, and I started looking for other Buffy podcasts that had actually made it to season 6, and there was literally over a dozen Buffy podcasts out there that have made it far enough that they've covered this episode.
Yeah, it's got a big fan base and people who want to talk about it. And I say that as a person who hosts a podcast about Batman.
So before we get into today's clip, what is your history with Buffy?
Oh, I grew up in the 90s. Like, I was born in 87, so I was, 10 when Buffy started. And yeah, from like season 1, I was invested. Like, I think it used to be shown over in Ireland. It was on BBC Two in the like Tuesday evening at about 6:45. It was kind of like you wouldn't get things on like at that time in the BBC nowadays. Like a show like this, it would be like, oh no, this would be like prime time television. But no, it's sort of like the kind of post dinner lull. I think the first episode I saw was the one where Willow gets an internet boyfriend, and it turns out to be like a robot monster guy.
Yeah, I Robot You, Jane.
Yeah. And I remember like being, 10 or 11 whenever that was shown, been like, ooh, what the hell is this? Because it was like, it's a bit like some of those, it felt a bit like a Power Rangers episode or something, but it was for like older kids. And you're like, oh, so it's like you can still watch this kind of stuff when you're a bit older. And yeah, so I was just sucked in by it. Then throughout the rest of my teen years, so like properly grew up with the show. Although around the time of, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people, around the time of season 6, like I was going through my own stuff, my own adolescent angst, and that season in particular is so dark and it's so just sad all the time. Yeah. That's when I sort of wane on the show a little bit, and I stuck around there like, well, season 7's the last one, I better stick this out. And then it's one I've always wanted to rewatch, but I always have it on like the docket of like, oh yeah, someday I'll do a big Buffy rewatch, and I have friends who have done them, and they're like, best decision I ever made was to rewatch that show. But
yeah,
it's so
I haven't done a full rewatch. I didn't do one for this season. I just did a season 6 rewatch, and I did start going into season 7, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go all the way through season 7.
I mean, it's so close to the end though. You can't like, oh, I can see the finish line. Nah, I'm good.
Well, I mean, I started at 6, so it's not. I just did the one season, and I know season 7 it has some good bits, but it starts off really rocky. I noticed.
Yeah.
And then I'm listening to a Buffy podcast and I was listening to them through season 1, so I'm hearing about the first season. Like, I finished listening about the first season. That's why I had the, I Robot You, Jane, because I just listened to that episode like a couple of days ago.
Yeah. I think it would be, it's weird because there's so much of the show. I guess you just didn't notice when it was like once a week. But that's 22 episodes a season, and they're all like 45 minutes long. Yeah. So to put that on someone now, it would be like, it's how long? Like, I don't have time for all that. Like, that's
No,
crazy.
even though the first season was a short season, it was like 12 or 13 episodes.
No, I mean, still though, like that's just a normal season for
Mhm.
TV now. But now they're like, well, can you dedicate 45 minutes of your day for the next 200 days? Like, I mean, I guess I could, but I don't know about like, so it's still someday when when I've finished all the rest of television, all the other TV I'm supposed to watch, I'll get around like, okay, now I've got the time to invest. And that's not to say it's a bad show. I want to rewatch it. It's just it's such a big investment. Which is why it was kind of a nice little treat. Like when you asked me to come on for this episode, been like, oh yeah, I don't really remember that episode. And then to dip in, and it was like it was weird revisiting old characters I've not seen in so long. Like even in the beginning of the clip we're talking about, like me, but like Xander he worked for a construction site. Like that doesn't seem like the Xander I remember, but maybe there was a big thing where he like grew up finally and was like, he never struck me as the type of guy who would get on like a union crew and be able to like hang about with these tough builder dudes and stuff, but I guess he did.
I don't remember if he tried going to college at all. I think he might have like maybe gone to trade school, but he was just kind of floating about in the first college year. And then I think he got into construction in season 5. And that went, and he was like fully construction guy through the end of season 5 through 6 and 7.
Oh, okay. I always remember the season 4 Xander arc. When you're younger, you're just like, what is the point of this character now? He can't decide what he's doing with himself. He's floating from place to place. Like, what a useless character. And then once you've grown up, you're like, oh no, like I totally get what's going on with Xander in season 4 now. Like I fully relate to him. I've been there, man. So
yeah, I feel like something that I noticed, especially with season 6, is it feels like it feels very relatable to millennials, and this was like, even though it came out like towards the end of the Gen X, but it has a lot of a millennial sensibility.
Yeah, I was happy just to see this episode though is much more lighthearted.
Yeah,
because like most of season 6 is sort of like dominated by the death of her mom, and then also I was dead and you brought me back, and now I wish I was dead again because it was so much easier. It was like that was the point I was starting to go like, I remember this show used to be fun, man. Like, so I was happy to go in. It's like, season 6, oh geez, what we got, and then to actually watch it, it's like, oh no, it's like it's much more back to like this is what Buffy used to always be like, where she's just quipping all the time and she's got her hardships, but she has a kind of like spring in her step and a sort of a kind of sunny, optimistic persona to see her through and stuff.
Although I think it's interesting, listening to the podcast talking about season 1. Season 1 was actually really dark as well, with the Master and her dying the first time around and all the prophecy stuff. Like it was filled with quips, and I think people forget about the darkness because it was so short that I think people lumped the first season in with the second season.
Yeah, I suppose maybe back when they were starting off, though, they're like, we have to put as big a divide between us and that movie as humanly possible. Because like the main thing in that movie that sticks out to me is Paul Rubens getting staked and then it's taken forever to die, and been like, this isn't funny. This is terrible. Like, why just die already, dude?
But some people might also say that that's the best part of the movie.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've listened to reviews of that movie who are like, this is Buffy. This is my Buffy. And I was like, man. And they're just like, no offense to the show, but this is what it should be. And I'm like, okay. You're welcome to it, I guess. But yeah, I recently rewatched the movie. I was thinking, like, I'm going to go back in with fresh eyes and try to reevaluate it. And I felt bad because I walked away. And I put up on Facebook about it, like, oh, I've watched it. And everybody's comments were all positive. I was like, oh, I hated it so much.
Yeah, I'm going to be revisiting the movie as well. I think that's going to wrap up this season as the last like bonus episode.
Yeah, it makes it go right. Yeah, back to the start. Makes sense. Yeah. But,
this is the second act right after her fast forward bit with Warren in college, and now she's joining Xander on his construction site. And I was going to ask you, but apparently you already said that you completely forgot that Xander was in construction at all. Because I was going to ask you that's like what his role was, other than he's just quote unquote in construction.
Yeah. It doesn't ever struck me as a construction guy. Like, it's just none of his personality from those first 4 years indicate like this guy's going to go in and work as a builder and stuff. But I guess they just like, we just need him, something to do, I guess. And I guess he's handy or whatever.
Yeah, he seems more like a data entry type guy.
Yeah,
not
he seems like
computers, but not anything super technical on computers. Just like typing in a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, there might have been though. Like, Willow's the computer person. Like, we can't cross the streams. Like, I know she's now also a witch, but like she's synonymous with computers as well, so we can't have. Although he strikes me as like he would just be like a like a Jim from The Office type. It's like, just a guy who's like, I just got a temp job at an office and I just sit and I do stuff, and it's like, it's boring, but whatever, it's a job. And I guess you could say it's the same with construction, but construction seems like it's an actual. It's like a lifestyle. You need to have a certain mentality to get into it and stuff. But
yeah,
whereas people are just in office jobs who are literally, they call them office drones for a reason, because they're just like whatever.
Yeah, and it seems like he's got some type of leadership role, especially in this episode. He talks about having to go upstairs to oversee the sheetrock.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels like whenever they arrive on the construction site, it feels like if he was in a leadership role, he should be like one of the first ones there. Except it seems like they're coming in and, everybody's already starting work.
It's weird that he would have gone that high up, or up to any high level in this job, because considering like when he approaches the guys, it again has that vibe of like Xander with anybody in high school, where they're kind of like, oh, this guy, like they almost have a kind of like, no, this is Xander Harris, he's just this annoying person that's around, and he tries to be funny, and everyone just kind of doesn't really like him and stuff. And I just kind of got the same vibe from these guys, where they're like, oh, god damn it, they call him Harris as well, but that's kind of sometimes it's just a way to show affection to people, but but call them something by their last name, particularly when everyone else calls him Xander all the time, seems a bit like they don't really like this guy. So how he would have worked his way in with the crew and stuff, he doesn't seem like a guy who'd be going out for beers or anything with them after. Like, I don't know, the whole thing strikes. But again, maybe if I rewatched the whole show and saw it coming together, naturally, it would ring true. But jump back into it, I'm like where's the hideous shirts? Like, where's the Xander wouldn't go for a job where he couldn't wear like a jumper and then a short sleeved Hawaiian shirt over the top of it. That's not his. That's his whole thing, man.
Yeah, exactly. And he definitely has more of a leadership role, I think, in the 7th season, because it seems like he's much more in charge of like rebuilding the school. And here it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's like the different crews are kind of separated. This isn't his crew.
Oh, I see. Maybe that might make the sort of slight hint of animosity might make a bit more sense, I guess.
Yeah. But I think I get the impression that he's either equal with Tony the foreman, or he's like just slightly lower.
I should because I'm assuming you will have talked about this in the last, I want to call it a loop, but not really. I did not understand at all though the fast forward thing. Like, what was Tara and Willow and everybody seeing when Buffy, did she phase out of reality? Like, what? I didn't get that at all.
The way I saw it was that, at least at the beginning, that Tara was just, or that from Tara's point of view, Buffy was just kind of spacing out. Like, maybe a little bit of like click where she's kind of running on autopilot, but so she's not like frozen in place to where she's perfectly still, but her consciousness really isn't there with her.
Yeah.
And
So I don't want to go back over something you've already thought, but it's just more like even if she was just sort of spacing out, you think Tara would be a bit more like, are you okay? Instead of just like, no, I just walked away and went about my day. But...
Well, and the other thing that I think you don't really get is that, especially in the first bits, it was just probably like, 20, 30 seconds. So that it was short enough to where, Tara, to where it doesn't stand out as being unusual, like that unusual. And then it's like just right in between classes, so Tara's not paying attention and they're not thinking about anything nefarious. And like whenever Tara goes into the class, Tara is totally the type of person that she would not leave class once it started to go check to see what's wrong with Buffy. Like she's not the type of person that would draw attention to herself.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Okay, I'll let it slide then. I'll let it slide. But well, I have to say though about this scheme that's upcoming. Of the 3 in the episode, I hate to tell Andrew, it's kind of like the lamest one.
Yeah, I mean,
the other ones are good.
I'm going to have us score it at the end because they scored Warren's, but they don't score the other 2. So whenever we get to the end, I'm going to have us score it to see how that.
Okay. Well, spoilers. That, but
yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
More effort needed. Like it feels more like it's like we need an action beat because every episode has to have Buffy's stunt person fighting a bunch of guys out there. So we couldn't do it with the other ones.
Yeah, and Xander and Buffy did have a brief discussion about that first act and her freak out, including the possibility of evil Lint. Yeah.
As a Masters of the Universe fan, I was like, is this a nod to evil Lint? But no, I think it's although again, it's very. I liked it because I was like, oh no, this is the early season Buffy stuff I remember though, like her sort of making little jokes like that and stuff. So I was happy to see it, and I love her coming up to the construction site with a little pink, like lunchbox and stuff. It's like,
and she's got a flower.
This is the classic character.
She has a flower in one of her pigtails.
Yeah, it's particularly not because like I think her mom has like just died, so I was expecting.
Well, I think it happened maybe a couple months before she died, and then she's been dead for 6 months.
Oh, okay. Because kind of thing is like, wow, man, this is like, and so I was thinking more in terms of episode times, but then I guess it would be you have a season break in between, don't you? So
yeah, I think the body was like episode 20, 21, somewhere around there, like close to the end. Yeah,
because it just feel a little bit like, woo, it's. I was kind of expecting it to be like it's going to be just all downer all the time, but thankfully there's a little bit of pep to what's happening here. But yeah, so I was enjoying seeing a classic Buffy scenario, although almost a bit too classic because it's kind of like when she approaches these construction guys and the animosity they give her.
Yeah, it feels like first season high school, like she's getting in with Cordelia. Or the jocks. I'm
kind of surprised that they would be in any way surprised, like Buffy and Xander, that this would happen. Because, like, of course, like, you're bringing over what looks like, a 19, 20-year-old, woman.
Yeah,
and they're big, burly men.
I think she turns 21 in the next episode, or in an episode or two.
Oh, there you go. So it's like, these people know the way society works. Like, why wouldn't you assume they'll be like, why the hell are you bringing this, like, skinny young woman to us, Xander? Like, we're big, burly, beer gut men. That's the kind of guys you need to be able to work in a construction site. What the hell? So you think they should have at least prepped in advance to be like, I know this looks strange, but trust me, she's very, very good at this kind of thing. But they kind of go in all guns blazing. They're like, well, when you get Static back, what do you think? What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, and he starts off calling her Gidget.
Yeah.
Which of course was a series of novels and movies. The first
Sally
movie,
Fields,
the first movie was with Sandra Dee, and then the TV series was Sally Field. And it was all about a teenage girl and her surfing buddies, including her boyfriend with the best name ever, Moondoggy.
I believe it was repeated on Irish TV on Saturday mornings. Ironically enough, with the Batman, the old 60s Batman TV show. And as I from doing research in the past season when I had to talk about Batgirl, Yvonne Craig's first screen role was in Gidget. So Yvonne Craig being, of course, the original Batgirl. So there's a little bit of connective tissue right there.
Yeah, and I do love this like joke setup with Xander afterwards, where he says, he sets up Tony as being pig ignorant, rude, and a little hostile, with the expectation of him saying, "But he's an okay guy." But that never comes. He just says, "Have fun."
I think those one of those ones I could see the joke coming, but it was very again, classic Xander. Of course, that's the kind of thing he would say. So
Yeah,
I don't think so much of this I was enjoying because it's like that is exactly what they would do. I'm so happy to be back in this world.
Pig ignorant is such an interesting choice of phrase too, because it's not like it's I guess a mix of pig-headed and ignorant.
I think I've heard pig ignorant quite a bit. I always just assumed it was just down to pigs because they're just happy wallowing in filth.
Yeah.
They are ignorant to what the filth is and stuff because they're pigs. They don't care. So I always interpreted it in that way. I was just gonna say because we zipped past. I thought it was a bit of an odd one where, Buffy says, thank you muchly in a very very Whedon-esque speak right there, and. Because she was so happy she doesn't have to work in where she will be working, in the next segment, the magic box. And she seems to have a real revulsion at the idea of working retail.
Yeah, she said she would rather die again.
Yeah, but I was a bit sort of like, why is she so... I was kind of determined because Buffy, the classically would have been like, oh, Buffy loves shopping and stuff like that. And it wasn't kind of like she's so repulsed by the idea of being on the other side of it for once or something, where having to work for people... like her or something. But it's not like she's working in a supermarket. It's like a very, a custom kind of, very specific niche shop.
Yeah, it's basically, it's one of those low volume, high price situations where you don't have a lot of people coming in, but the people that do come in tend to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. I got a friend who used to own an accordion shop. And that was this whole thing. It's like, yeah, if you sell 3 of these a month, that kind of covers the cost, basically. But yeah, I was a bit so surprised that I thought Buffy would love to be part of the world of retail because that would have been that was the old cliche back in the day about teenage girls in the 90s, they love going shopping and stuff. But yeah, to see her just be so ugh, the concept of having to do what her father figure Giles does, I don't think Giles wants to kill himself because he works in the magic box. I was very surprised she was so against it.
I think it's weird for them to go to that joke, especially this early in the season, because it was really I think literally just last episode where she did want to die because it was easier. And I think, the next episode, Once More with Feeling, or 2 episodes from now, is whenever it's revealed that she was in heaven and that she views life in Sunnydale in general as being in hell.
So, yeah, but retail joke, I guess we got by the end of the season, Buffy, you use that I would really rather be dead again line so goddamn often it's lost all meaning now.
And then at this point, Xander leaves her, says he's going up to oversee the sheetrock, which I thought that was kind of a weird choice. And of course, it's worth mentioning that sheetrock is basically the brand name for drywall. But at the same time, that I don't see why, because we see Buffy working what looks like on the ground floor. I don't know why they would be putting up drywall on the floors above if the lower level is this unfinished. I mean, I'm not in construction myself, but I would think that, you start at the bottom and work your way up. Yeah. So you would be putting drywall on the first floor before you start putting drywall on the second floor.
Maybe that's why. Maybe Xander's in charge of this entire project. And that's why all the guys seem to not really like him. This goddammit, he's got to put the drywall up. The freaking floor's not even built yet, for Christ's sake. This place is gonna fall. It's gonna tip over because everything's on the top and there's no foundations.
Yeah, and then Tony gives off the instructions. He tells Danny to go install the J boxes, which are just, electrical junction boxes. And Vince and Marco are hauling steel inside. And
Um,
Vince mentions the affirmative action lawyers,
mm.
and he calls her Brittany, and then Tony calls her Princess shortly afterwards.
Some of them too are all like a lot of the insults, like don't break a nail and all this sort of business. They're so like base level insults as well. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it feels very 80s, and this was a 2000s show.
yeah, you're kind of hoping like, you know, Cordelia would come up with something much cleverer than this. She was a world class bully, but these guys don't even have original insults. You know, it's like modern day, like somebody calling, you know, someone on the left a snowflake and someone on the left calling someone on the right an incel or whatever. It's just like, come up with something new, would you? Like, just engage your imagination a little bit instead of going to, you know, Brittany and Princess and breaking a nail and stuff. Like, oh, come on, guys, you know. But I guess maybe they don't want to portray them as people having any of that level of intellect to come up with a clever new kind of thing. But
yeah, and then we get a visual demonstration of Buffy's super strength, which you know it's referenced a lot, but we don't really see it that much. I mean, she's a good fighter, but you could kind of see it as just being someone that's good at martial arts in general, but still having normal strength to be able to do like 95% of what Buffy does on screen.
Yeah, I think it's be one of the elements that would date the show the most. Like, wow, mind blowing abilities. It's like, it just looks like fairly standard stunt work, but you know.
Yeah, and I kind of did some rough calculations, so that looks like a standard like 12 by 5.5 I-beam, which those typically weigh like 50 pounds per foot. And I would just give a rough estimate that's easy on math that's a 10-foot I-beam, so that would weigh 500 pounds. And she picks it up like it's made of foam, which it probably is.
Yeah. Do you think though this is in reaction? Like specifically, because it seems like, you know, it can't do like, you know, 6 seasons in, Buffy should know a bit about like, well, don't just show off that you're the Slayer, like you got to hide this. So, do you think she originally came in with the intention of like, oh yeah, I'll pretend to be a little bit weaker than I am, but still do a good job, and then been so like, oh yeah, princess, that some of us be like, all right, screw you guys, and just going and like fully displaying to kind of shut them up, or do you think she just isn't thinking that like maybe I should hide the fact that I can lift this thing like literally one-handed and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like she's kind of back in this role where she kind of forgets about the real world sometimes, and it's just, you know, so much of her life is demons and vampires that whenever she does go back into the real world, sometimes she forgets. So, oh yeah, I need to put on my real world Buffy mask.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't really have a secret identity. She's just always Buffy. And demons just kind of follow her around, like we'll see in a moment.
That's it. Again, I assumed it might have been more of an American thing, because when, you know, she corrects them to say, you know, my name's Buffy, I was like, yeah, I've never met a Buffy in real life. I've seen like some 80s comedies and stuff where you get a side character called Buffy or something, but I was kind of like, is it a name? Like, because that feels like that's almost opening up to more mockery by saying it's Buffy, because it sounds like such a made up thing. But I guess like it's short for something. It's like I've never looked into like, oh, it's like Buffarella or something.
Yeah, Rebuffa. I actually haven't looked that up myself. I think that maybe that'll be something that I do for a future episode. Because I have never met a Buffy in person. I don't think, as popular as this show is, I think that Buffy is an unusual enough name, and also, like you said, it has an 80s feel to it, that I don't think that people who love Buffy started naming their kids Buffy.
Yeah. I can imagine it'd be a wave of Willows and Taras and stuff like that, but then Buffy's like, okay, like maybe maybe that's where the line is drawn, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's similar because I just last night I just recorded the Harry Potter episode for my in between seasons that aired 3 episodes ago, and that's the same thing with Hermione. That you didn't get a lot of people naming their kids Hermione, even though Hermione is an extremely popular character and Harry Potter is an extremely popular franchise.
Yeah, it's like you're setting the kid up basically. If you front load them with like, my name's Hermione, it's like everyone's like, oh, so it's gonna get a reaction from people. Although there was a Nicolas Cage named his kid Kal-El, so it's like, dude. Although I guess he's Nicolas Cage's son, so he's just gonna be living in that bubble. He'll never have to deal with it in the real world. But
yeah, that's the one benefit of being a celebrity. You can name your kid a weird name, and they will. I mean, they'll be damaged just because of the situation, but not just because of their name.
Yeah. I think I should mention as well, the guy Tony, the actor who plays him. There's a guy called Paul Gutreich. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's in a bunch of stuff, but I was excited to see he's in an episode of VIP, Valerie Irons Protection, which was when that Pam and Tommy show was airing this year, like the Pamela Anderson, Tommy Lee show. Yeah. I was really fingers crossed, this is gonna bring back, people are gonna get interested in VIP again. We'll finally get it put on streaming services, and so I used to love that show.
So I never watched that one, but I did watch Stripperella, Pam Anderson's.
I never saw Stripperella. I just knew of its notoriety. But VIP I always thought was because Pam Anderson's a genuinely funny actress. And the show was just that late 90s trashy, all the guys are hunks, all the girls are babes, it's everybody in it just looks stunning all the time, and they're always dressed in needlessly sexy outfits and stuff. And it's always sunny out, and it just always had a real sense of fun about the whole thing. So I was like, oh, maybe it'll finally spark interest in VIP again. No, I think we're still you can get the odd episode on YouTube, but that's and it's all in VHS quality.
Yeah, of course.
But his Paul Gutreich's his big thing, people probably might literally go oh yeah, I know that guy. He was in the first Saw movie. He was the guy. I guess he gets the treat of being one of the first Jigsaw victims in the good Saw movie. He was one of the real brief 30-second victims where you're here's what Jigsaw does. On to the next one. So if people don't like Tony, don't worry.
He gets what's coming to him. Yeah, and then inside the construction site, she helps another construction worker who I don't know. There was 3 of them, I guess Vince, Marco, and Danny. So I don't know if I know Vince is the Hispanic stereotype looking one.
Yeah, I managed to find, because he's played by a guy called Noel Igumi. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the pronunciation there, but
Noel Guglielmi, I think.
Okay, but if you look at that guy's IMDb, it is nuts. He's been since the early 2000s, so in the last 24 years, he's accrued 228 acting credits, 40 plus of them in the last 2 years. So this guy is friggin' working, and I think what it might be is that he is probably getting a lot of stereotyped Mexican thug roles. I guess it's fortunate for him. It's unfortunate stereotyping, but it's fortunate for him as an actor because he's you need a tough Mexican guy to just be in part of a crew or whatever. I'm your man. So yeah, he seems to be endlessly working, and been in he was in both the Training Day TV show and the movie, 2 separate parts. He's in The Dark Knight Rises, so I was excited to see that. Crank, with the excellent Jason Statham. He's gotta keep his heart going because of blah, 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 blah. And people haven't seen Crank, please go and watch it. It's absolutely amazing. And then for I always have to link everything to Batman. He was in Darling Nikki the movie, which was the name of a Prince song. And of course Prince did the soundtrack to the '89 Batman movie. So,
of course.
Apparently his first ever credit was in the video for "Pretty Fly for a White Guy." It's like it's a great way to start your career of 230 odd things.
Yeah, that's crazy. But good on him.
The Offspring saw something in this man, and they're like, "We are going to pick him from obscurity and launch him into the stratosphere."
Yeah, and then so back to the episode. We have Buffy helping the guy on the inside, and he's like, do us all a favor. We're working by the hour. Slow down. Which is that feels very like stereotypical, like what people think construction people, like their mentality is. That they're always working slowly and taking breaks because they work by the hour and not by the project.
I appreciate that guy too. Is just like he's so of that mentality. He's not fazed at all by the fact that this lady is just lifting up these girders and walking around. He just doesn't. I don't care about that. I'm just caring about getting paid. So slow the hell down, and whatever weird magic crap you got going on, just keep it the hell away from me.
Yeah, and then we get a creepy shot of Tony in the background, just kind of staring in between the wood support beams. And I think it's funny because, especially because of what he was planning on saying, but like whenever he's looking at her, she's just kind of standing around doing nothing. Yeah.
Maybe that's what he wanted to do. Like, I appreciate you're standing around doing nothing because you do work by the hour.
Yeah.
And like it's like you got it. You got the knack.
Yeah, you're really fitting in. And then we get the cut to the shot through the binoculars, and we return to the trio, and specifically Warren and Jonathan looking out the window, and they have this argument about whether it's 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So, where do you come down on this argument?
Well, I think if you're from the direction your eyes are pointing, you would go from there. I'm on Jonathan's side. I think that's like that's why Why would you be looking from the front of the van? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I'm with you too. They're looking out the side window, so it should be 12 o'clock is going straight ahead from out the side window that they're looking at. And so, she would be there at 2 o'clock, so just a little bit off to the right.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock from out the back of the van. Like, where are your eyes pointing right now? That's where you're registering from. Yeah. But the fair Warren, not the best leader, so
yeah. And this is like really only their like second appearance in this season. Yeah.
What do you make of the trio as a concept? Because I think at the time I was a bit like, what is this? Like I didn't. It's only when you see where the season goes, what the end game is with them, where it's kind of like, oh, okay, I don't mind them so much now. But for a while I was really like, I guess they just got fed up of doing like big, powerful villains. So let's do these dweeby dicks who don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm actually in favor of them. I thought that for the most part they were kind of maybe not a high point in the season, but I thought that they were the right direction that this season needed, because like we've been saying, season 6 is so dark. It deals with a lot of dark themes. That it's a good idea to bring in a lighter big bad. These three goofy comic relief, and for the most part they are comic relief, and surprisingly, like they're not really a big part of the season. I think it's not really until you get to like the last 5 I think before the last 5 episodes of the season where things really rack up. They're only in like 4 of the first 15 episodes.
Yeah, like Warren's character is very outshone now by like what happens to him. Every time you see him, like, oh yeah, that guy. Like it's not so much like all his zany schemes in the middle of the season don't really stick, but like the end result really does. And I remember always been very disappointed in Jonathan.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I always felt for that guy. Like, and at the time, like, what are you doing, man? Like, didn't you literally hand Buffy the class protector thing back in season 3? Like, what the hell? How have you fallen so far? But
yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's a good arc for him, especially because he gets his own little arc within the trio in this season, where he's always kind of they all join in because they're just like want to take over Sunnydale, and he's like, okay.
Mm.
And then I think his contributions tend to be the least effective.
Yeah. You think he's half-assing it? Like he's like, I don't actually want to take over Sunnydale.
Well, I mean, he wants to take over Sunnydale, but he doesn't want to kill the Slayer. Or he doesn't, like, I think he would have been happy just with the money that they got from the bank, and he would have been good to just stop, and he's just kind of playing around and going along. Just because it fits in with his character, because this is a group that he feels like accepts him. Yeah.
Although they're always constantly squabbling with each other at the same time.
And then he has the redemption where he basically kind of he's part of how the day gets saved at the end.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that tells Buffy how to defeat super strong Warren with the power orbs. And then he's the one that, convinces them to go back to jail, even though he is very easily swayed to go to Mexico when there's an opening. Yeah.
And of course then his ultimate redemption is when he goes and runs the Yale newspaper and hooks up with Paris Geller and all that stuff and down the line.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting character there in Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. It's just always weird when they kind of treated him with a bit more respect. I was like, I'm used to seeing this guy getting dumped on all the time. I can't imagine him in a position of authority. But Danny Strong, I guess it's in the name. He should have some backbone.
Yeah.
I'd say Andrew playing it very cool in the back here too. Like, I don't know if he's kind of fronting here, because he's just casually kicking back, reading the comic, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll kick my plan into gear now. Instead of you think he'd be all gearing up and a bit, there'd be a lot of nervous energy and stuff. But
and he just casually, pulls out the pan flute and blows a single note, even though he goes across several different of the whatever you call them. It should go deeper as he goes across.
Yeah. I was too focused on trying to see if there's any way to see what comic he's reading.
No, it's too dark. I considered looking up the image on his shirt, because it's like a it's a green shirt with red lettering, but I can never make out what the words say, because it's green, or it's red on green, and you never really get a clear shot. But it's like a black and white image of a woman, kneeling down, kind of facing away, but with her head turned, with dark black hair. And I can't tell if it's supposed to be anime or if it's a more American indie comic.
Yeah. I was actually looking up like Weezer single covers or the Offspring album covers. It's that seems like something, particularly Offspring. That seems like something they would put on the cover, or maybe a Korn album or something. But no, couldn't find it myself too. And I was getting certain angles. I thought it was is it a cartoon penguin? What is this? What am I looking at here? But
yeah, you get a little bit better shot of it a bit later in the episode, but I was never able to make out what the lettering says.
Yeah. I was devastated to go visit the Buffy Wikipedia, and because that's what these things are for. Is always someone will put in the trivia section what it means, and then their trivia is just so basic, just the Star Wars theme plays in this. I know that. What does the shirt say?
Yeah, but he summons these demons, and I guess right before the demons show up, we have Buffy getting a drink of water, and we get the fake out with the POV shot of someone on camera picking up these giant bolt cutters in what looks like a menacing way. And
my initial thought was going to be it's he's blown the pan pipes, and now the construction site is going to come alive. This, it's not that someone's holding the wrench; it's that it's literally lifted itself up and it's going to fling itself at her. And maybe the drill will go for her. I kind of assumed that was what was going to happen, but tragically not. No.
No, I think that would be more interesting, but it also wouldn't fit in with the character that they've made for Andrew, because Jonathan's the magic guy, Andrew is the demon summoning guy, and Warren is the tech guy.
But so yeah, but again though, if that's Andrew's constant move, I'll summon a demon to do it. It's like, man, you gotta put in more effort. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and then Buffy just grabs Tony, and if it looks like she kind of just, not gently, but it doesn't look like she puts a lot of force behind shoving him to the side. And even though he's wearing a hard hat and it doesn't look like he hits his head, he just runs into the wall. It's like, what are those hard hats for if not to protect your head from these sorts of situations?
They can protect you against everything except Slayer's strength. That's the problem.
Yeah,
again, that should have been a real thing of like, she shoved me, I had my hard hat on, and I still got injured. How is she this strong? What is going on?
Yeah, and so these three look like homeless lizard men wearing these like ratty robes. You got one that's like, a standard kind of fabric cloth. Another one is kind of like a textured, almost like a comforter.
Yeah.
Cut into a trench coat shape that's, of course, torn. There's a lot of frays. And they almost look like a low budget Predator. Because they kind of have the mouth and the dreadlocks, but they only have two of them and not a whole head of them.
It does feel very like, because they do have some good demon designs later in this very episode. But you did get a slight vibe of like, what masks do we have lying around that we can combine with something else? Or like we draw something, but just like whatever, we don't care. Like
it's like they look like the Predator and a Twi'lek from Star Wars had a baby. Yeah.
And that probably was the inspiration. I was like, just blended those two things together. And it's like, I'll just make a couple of, like 3 or 4 of those. That'll do. But then later on, doesn't Buffy describe them as like ape men or something? It's like, they don't look anything like apes. What are you talking about?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
I think she calls them like hairy ape men. And it's like, unless I'm assuming that scene was shot later or something, or shot before actually. Like like, we did that, then we did all the stunt work later. Or maybe Sarah Michelle Gellar never encountered these guys because it was all her stunt person. But
and it feels like we get this moment in the fight which reminds me of The Princess Bride, where there just happens to be a bar that she can grab and do a miniature gymnastics routine on. Just like the bar in the fencing scene in The Princess Bride where he does the swing and the flip.
Yeah. There's a real vibe of like, I don't know if they hired these, like a stunt crew was like, once an episode though, you were contractually obligated to have us on. Like we need to get screen time or whatever to show off our goods. Or if it was a network thing, it was like, well, it has to be an action beat. Like every episode, you can't just have it be some sort of, like even in the Body episode, there's a random fight with a demon towards the end, as I recall, where it's just like, you just need to have one in there. It's just, it's Buffy. Like, that's what happens. But yeah, so this was the, I don't think they were giving it their whole ass with this, with this scenario.
Yeah, and it's basically just a typical Buffy fight scene. She knocks a couple of them through the unfinished wall, does a bunch of damage, and then she knocks one down, and off screen, I believe we don't really see it that clearly, but I think it's intended that she beheads it, and then it dissolves into like an Alex Mack style goo.
Maybe that's what these guys were. They were like, that's what happens to Alex Mack after a couple of years. Your body eventually morphs into Yoda, Twi'lek, Predator guy or something. And that would have been a team up, the 90s Soar, Buffy and Alex Mack getting together to solve some stuff.
And Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, then now we got a concept. Spec script. Well, here we go.
Yeah, and then she goes on to the next one, the next demon, and she chokes him out with the the metal-wrapped electrical cable.
Mm.
And so apparently they do breathe air, and, like all movie and TV choke scenes, it only takes, 3 seconds to choke somebody out.
I do have to wonder, like, because these guys have, they're sophisticated enough to have made clothes. They're not like ravenous animals, although they kind of are. But then I was like, what's Andrew's deal with them? Like, he summons them, but like, did he organize something in advance with, like, well, if you kill the Slayer for me, then I'll give you riches, or I'll give you kittens, or like I'll give you like. Did he meet with him beforehand, or is it literally like it's part of some big book he found where it's like if you call these guys, no matter what, they have to attack whoever you tell them to, or I'm just wondering what the backstory behind this whole thing is.
Yeah, I think it's typically like in the demon summoning playbook, depending on how powerful of a demon summoner you are, you can control whatever you summon as long as it's not more powerful than your skills.
Yeah. There's some stuff like I feel there could have been an element that would have made this stronger. Like I do, not skip ahead too far, but like if Andrew specifically got them because he knew they would, dissolve at the end, and it would make Buffy look crazy, and maybe there might have been a thing where, maybe they were invisible to everybody but her, and so it did look like she was just flipping out, and and then it starts getting into more of the three things together make it seem like they're making Buffy think like, am I actually going insane? Like,
yeah, basically. Well, I mean, they use that twice later in the season because they use the one that literally makes her think that she's in a different reality, and this entire show is a figment of her imagination.
Yeah, as I recall, that episode ends on the note of like, maybe it all is, and I was like, what?
And then
the scar that runs deep 20 years later.
And then the other one that makes her think that she killed Warren's ex-girlfriend that he had already killed.
Yeah. Maybe that's when the screenwriters were getting the idea. It's like, well, we could have if we had done that there. Oh, we could just do that later. We got that idea right there. But now it feels like, there could have been some sort of thing of like, because when the note I do appreciate, because all the monsters in Buffy are always some kind of metaphor for something, and I do like when she's saying to like the guys, going like, no, you were witnesses, you saw this, and they're like, no, didn't see anything, and I'm like, no, but you specifically were like in the corner crying like a little girl and stuff, and the guys, it's a bit of toxic masculinity. You're like, no, what, me? No way, no, didn't see nothing. The fact that he would throw, rather than admit that he was weak or was, emotional, or that like a woman had to come and save him, he has no, didn't happen at all. So
yeah, must be that time of the month.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, another sort of redundant go-to insult from these guys. But,
yeah.
Been hitting the hard hat too many times, I think.
Yeah, and Buffy, going back to the scene, she kills the third demon by pulling the hydraulic hose off the scissor lift, so it crushes his head.
Yeah. It's I feel a lot of this I would have actually been into again if it was practical effects. If she was killing them and they turned into a load of actual goo on the floor, or when she put that guy into the thing and then there was like, you see all the gunk come out the other side or something like that, I think I would have been more like, ooh, yeah, I like this. But the fact it's all CGI, it is all like Alex Mack's CGI looked better than this. It's just very like,
and Alex Mack was actually 90s, where this was like 2003, I think.
So this is kind of like, I imagine they're like, don't spend too much on this scene. Okay, like we got the weird wrinkly guy coming up later.
I mean, this was the first scene. This was the first season where they had switched from the WB to UPN.
Oh, I see.
So UPN was a brand new network, and they didn't have. I wouldn't be surprised if. I mean, WB was already the 6th out of 6 broadcast channels, and then UPN comes out as the 7th one.
I was trying to work out earlier though. So it was just I think it used to be much easier. Although I guess now, because Disney now owns Fox, it would be all simpatico again. But I did think it was a bit weird. Like, oh, they can just full on show the Death Star in this, and they have the actual Star Wars. I guess it's in horn form.
Yeah.
But I was a bit like, oh yeah, you could, like, I guess if it's owned by 20th Century Fox, they could just do that. And I think before Disney acquired the rights, Lucas was very sort of like, just whatever, just go and you can use it for that. Like, yeah, that's fine. Whereas I think Disney's a bit more like, no, it's our property, and we only we can use it. So.
I mean, it aired on UPN, but I know that the DVD releases, I believe they're Fox property.
Yeah, I know. I saw the transition happen in that a friend of my brother's, who was an artist who used to do like photography of like local landmarks and stuff in Ireland, but he put in like, oh, there's a TIE fighter going overhead or something like that, and people were like, oh, that's really cool, I'll buy a print of that, and was operating for years, with no problem. And as soon as Disney acquired the rights, he got an email going, you better stop that right now. Because that's how you stay on top, is like you just keep cutting people off and going like, well, don't let no cracks in the armor whatsoever. You keep things locked tight if you're Disney, I think. Although I guess to say now, they now own Fox, so they probably would be like, yeah, sure, go ahead and use it in our own show.
Yeah. And we get the little fight with the binoculars, and then the Star Wars theme playing on the horn.
Yeah.
And
we get the beads in the back of the van, which was, as I like, my main memories of it. I think post season 3 of Buffy, it becomes like a sea of beads in the show. Like,
yeah, there's those beads. And also, we didn't mention it before, but Andrew's in the back. He's sitting on a beanbag chair.
Yeah. I think I just remember everybody, like, when she goes to college, like, everybody, like, oh yeah, beads everywhere. It was the early 2000s. It was a time of beads. So.
Yeah, and then I think one thing that I do like is, we get to see the aftermath of this fight, and even though, like I just mentioned earlier, that Buffy is kind of in her own world with the demons and the vampires, but I think something that the show as a whole does pretty well is every once in a while it does bring in these moments of reality. It's like these demons caused real damage that affect real people, and it's like Xander has to tell the clients about this damage that's going to cause a delay in added costs.
Yeah. Then the other guys are like, well, Xander, you might want to just like knock the whole thing and like literally start from the ground up instead of putting a drywall up when there's no friggin' foundation.
Even though, like you were talking about, we get this sitcom-esque buffoonery with the PMS, and no, I wasn't crying like a baby, and it's all victim blaming. With Xander, where he's like, this is my world. I don't want you bringing demons into my world. I go to work to escape the forces of darkness.
I think again though, I was like, this is 6 seasons in, Xander. Like, how many demon attacks have you seen in unexpected places? How could you be surprised at it? How can you turn around and be like, Buffy, not my place of work? It's like they'll happen anywhere, man. You've seen it all the time. And the fact that I think it's the first time he must have thought of like, oh, this is going to cost money to fix this. Because I guess every other time he was like, not my problem. So swagger away from the graveyard or the food court or wherever the hell we just went.
Yeah, and only this time it's like, again, he's like high enough up that, he is the one that maybe is the one that's dealing with the client, or... Like, he is someone that's of some importance on this construction site. Based on the way that he talks about it, because it's not like he's just kind of a peon and would get in trouble because he's the one that brought Buffy on board.
Yeah, he's not kind of got that, it's not even, now my money is on the line here, like my paycheck is involved. I don't have time for these Slayer games anymore.
Yeah. And then he walks off.
This could have been... I thought this could have been helped a little bit as well. Again, if it was like, it might have made Xander come off a little more sympathetic too. If he's just fronting in front of the guys, like Buffy's kind of turning and going like, all these things happen to someone. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as they're outdoors, he's like, okay, yeah, I totally believe you. But it feels like he is genuine what he says inside. But I would have preferred if he was just like, no, like my job's on the line here, so I have to act like you're nuts. and then take you outside and be like, okay, yeah, totally, we all can agree that's what happened. But yeah,
Yeah, and I do like the walk, and it's a very Xander nice guy way of firing Buffy. Just um, strongly urging Buffy to go head to Giles and figure out what sort of demon is trying to attack her, and try sketching it, and then after I'm done with my shift, maybe I'll come over and look at mugshots with you.
yeah. I think it was a bit weird. I guess maybe Buffy's just sort of like all out of sorts. It was a bit weird for Xander to be telling her what to do. It was like, well, she does it more than you do, man. So,
well, I mean,
but at the same time, it is more because he's probably just a bit like all over, like what the hell is happening, and he's just more like, okay, so again, doing that nice guy firing, and then also trying to ease the blow.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that this is like his domain. The way he puts it, while they're on the construction site, he's the head honcho in the Scooby Gang.
Yeah. I'd be curious though of the aftermath of this for Xander. Are they all like, who was that psycho you brought? Who like, and then other people who were like genuinely did see the demons, been like, I know I didn't. I said I didn't see anything, but like I saw something, man. And there was this lady going around lifting girders as if they were friggin' nothing. And like, what the hell was that? Who did you bring to the construction site, Xander?
What kind of people do you
still
know?
Would get fired because they're like, what circles are you running in? Like, you bring one person to work and this happens, we're gonna go to you to ask the questions. So
yeah, but and that's where this clip ends. This is where it cuts to commercial. If it was airing on broadcast, or if you're on a streaming service with commercials, this is where they would probably put the commercials in. But like I told you before, in the last one, which was the only time that they scored, just a reminder of how Warren scored. Warren got 50 points for ingenuity, 30 points for actual contact, and he got a 7 out of 10 for the freak out factor, which they multiplied by 20 to give him 140 points for a total of 220 points. So let's start with the freak out factor for Andrew. Like, out of 10, what do you think is a good freak out factor for Andrew's plan with the demons?
I'll put it pretty low because again, this is standard Buffy stuff. Like, she gets randomly attacked by demons all the time, so this would be like a 3 or a 4, I think.
Yeah, that's right where I am. I would say about a 4, because I think it's a little bit higher just because she doesn't expect demons to be out in the middle of the day on a construction site. She usually deals with them at night.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit higher, but yeah, it's basically routine for Buffy. So I would just say a 4. And then
I would have bumped it up had it been that they were invisible demons that only she could see.
Or if
and
there was
left
something
her
else.
With the vibe of like, maybe I am, seeing things or something. Because then that would actually properly freak her out. I don't think she's freaked out at all at this point. I think she's just like, she literally says to Xander, this is like, this happens all the time. So
yeah, and especially after the fast forward freak out where she wasn't sure if it was in her head or if it was something happening to her.
Yeah.
And I don't think we give them anything for ingenuity, nothing for any actual contact. Is there any other like sort of bonus points that you could give him?
I mean, maybe because it evokes a bit of casual misogyny thrown in Buffy's direction, which might hurt her feelings in some way. That could be a blow, but I guess she deals with it all the time. So no, I think I have to say, consider it too. Like, the best segment is yet to come. I gotta say, it's like, it's pretty weak, Andrew. Pretty weak.
Yeah, I would just give him like maybe an extra 20 points because he got her fired.
Yeah. I guess, I suppose, yeah. Particularly too, if it's adding to her inner anxiety and turmoils about like, well, am I gonna make money and stuff like that.
So that gives Andrew a total of 100 points for his scheme, which is pretty low compared to Warren's 220.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know if any of that's intentional too. Like, do they know that she's going through financial troubles at the minute, or are they just like, oh, she seems to work a lot of jobs apparently?
No, I mean, they even say that. They're like, she college, construction, the retail. It seems like she doesn't have any direction.
So yeah, I guess they might not realize it. Like, oh yeah, she's going through fiduciary crisis at the minute, but
along with several other crises.
Yeah. Well, it is Buffy.
Yeah.
It's both the show and the character. That's the way it is at all times.
And then that brings us, like I said, that's the end of this clip. So is there anything else that you want to say about this clip or this episode as a whole or this season as a whole?
No, particularly. I think I've sort of I've aired my views on on everything I needed to. I will say, like, I did like the end of episode stinger. But I like the little scene between her and Giles at the end where he gives her the money. And it did successfully intrigue me enough where she's like, I'm so happy you're always going to be here and you're never going to go away. And he has that moment of like, oh boy, I got some news for you, Buffy. It's like, oh, what's going to happen next? So they successfully did that.
It's almost you almost expect him to do the classic film where he like tugs on his collar and goes, yeah.
It's like, well, hold that thought. And yeah, I will say, like, this season, I just remember it being a real downer, but really enjoying the ending. Like, I love all the Dark Willow stuff. And I love the fact, too, again, when you're watching in real time, it was like, yeah, Xander's just like, what the hell is the point of this character anymore? And then by the finale of the season, you're like, oh, that's what. Like, he is still a relevant and good character to have around because he can step in when something like this happens and stuff. So, but although, again, most of season 7, I don't think it has as many redeeming factors as that as well. So I remember season 7 was just like Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
There you go.
Xander loses an eye.
Yep, Xander losing an eye, and then it just ending. And the weird thing of I don't know, I'm sure it probably did it. I'm not too sure how much further after the US it aired. My big thing with the ending was they kept showing commercials for the season premiere of Angel, which showed you Spike as a ghost in the commercials before you had even seen the finale of Buffy. So you're like, oh, I guess he's gonna die. So you watch the finale and then you're like, oh, well, he'll be fine. I'm sure we're about to see him in Angel apparently. So although I guess maybe hardcore fans would probably know, like, oh, James Marsters has been cast in Angel, so we know he's gonna be around anyway. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Nate. As I said, I was happy to dip back into the Buffy universe. I think if I wanted to do a mini rewatch, I think I would aim for seasons 2 and 3. I remember that being the peak of the show, really.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like the stuff with Evil and with Angelus and Faith. I think those are 2 really good arcs.
Yeah, I remember that, like, particularly at the time, even as a kid, been like, particularly around the season 2 finale, like I would have been like 12 maybe or something when I saw that, and realizing like, oh, this is like really good TV. Like this story is so compelling. I'm so invested in everything that's happening and stuff. So yeah, but I'm sure I'll get them a big rewatch someday though. Someday down the line, it'll eventually happen.
Yeah,
and maybe I think they're lacking Buffy podcasts, as we discussed earlier. So maybe they'll start a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for more Buffy talk. But thanks so much for joining me. It's good to have you on where we can kind of focus on one big scene rather than last time whenever I had you on.
Last time was down to like, here's 3 seconds of Over Grace.
Yeah, which we're getting to that later on this season where I get to deal with, several 3 to 5 second clips, but
well, say to the guests, good luck with that.
I know, I love them still. It's me stretching this format to its limit, but those sections have always been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I guess you get to do more. It's more of a free fall podcast at that point. It's like, well, let's see what we can do. So,
yeah.
No safety net.
But yeah, thanks again for coming back. And for everybody else listening, why don't you take a moment and plug your current projects and let them know where they can find you online?
Well, yeah, you get me on, my main project is Batminute, which is a project where we are talking about all the Batman films, 1 minute at a time. We've got the first 4 seasons completed, so that's 89 up through Batman and Robin. And we'll be coming back later this year, or maybe early next year, with Mask of the Phantasm, which I'm very excited by. But currently, though, in the middle of our hiatus, me and my co-host John are doing movies by minutes of the 1987 craptacular classic Miami Connection, which it's a long pitch. So I would just advise if anyone wants to know about Miami Connection, just please Google it. It's a fascinatingly funny, fantastic story. But yeah, that's begun airing now as well. So that once a week. As I said, it's just me and John. This is supposed to be a very relaxed sort of messing around project. And then Batman, of course, has much more research and guests and stuff involved. But you can find the Miami Connection show. That's called Miami Minutes. And that'll be, if you just Google Miami Minutes, that'll pop up. And the same with Batminute. If you find us on Twitter and Facebook and all over the internet, but it will be either Batminute or the Batminute. And we should be the only thing that pops up. So, yeah, there you go.
All right. And as always, I am Bubbawheat. And, if you do a search for Bubbawheat, all one word, pretty much it's all just me that comes up. That's one reason why I stick with the Bubbawheat. And you can find me on Twitter where I'm at Bubbawheat. You can find my writings on all of the Batman movies. It's my site, flightstitesandmovienights.com. And you can find this show, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. And we also have a Facebook group, It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group. And you can join that to discuss episodes as they come out or have any sort of discussions about time loops in general. So until next time, grrr.
Arg.
Word in your ear.
Numbing hand.
Word in your ear.
Essence of slug. Numbing hand.
Word in your ear.
Essence of slug. Numbing hand.
Word in your ear.